here's the story of how I worked with a Mexican restaurant to transform their outdated logo into a modern and distinct brand identity. So with that said, let's go to the first step of any branding project, brand strategy. This video is sponsored by Connick, but more on them throughout this video. First, I put together a mood board. This allowed me to visually show the client the direction I envisioned the brand going with colors, images, and typography. After the mood board was approved, it was time for me to start designing. The pressure was now on to work some magic because we didn't want to just create any old brand. We wanted to create one that had layers.
Oh, you both have layers.
As I always do when designing a brand, I started with the logo type. First, I had to find the right font. I searched through a bunch until I got it down to just two. One gave a more traditional vibe and the other was modern. What did I go with? Well, let's travel back in time to see what Past Me did. Okay, I am currently having the biggest dilemma choosing between these two fonts that I have whittled down. So they are two completely different fonts. We've got the one on the left, which is a condensed sans serif, which is very modern, and I feel like I could easily tweak it to how I want it. But then we've got this one on the right, which is giving me so much personality. The grunge effect is just giving me that authentic Mexican feel, and I honestly don't know which way that I want to go. I kind of feel in my gut that this grunge effect would work really nicely for this Mexican brand, so I feel like I'm just gonna go with that one. So after deciding on the font, I got to work and started customizing it in the hopes that I could create something distinct while also adding character. After about an hour of designing, something felt off. It's really hard to describe, but you know when you just look at something and it just doesn't feel right. As a result of this, I had a quick design tantrum and actually decided to scrap the font and go with the one I'd previously dismissed. I had such a clear vision for this logo type. I wanted to create something that was fiery and robust, but still modern. Did I achieve that? Well, let's go back in time and see. So there are two big changes I want to make to this typography, and the first one I'm going to do is add in some custom curls and flicks, that worked really well, onto some of these letters to kind of represent the fire and movement within Mexican food and kind of like the spice and ingredients that you get as well. So I think adding in flicks can really help represent that feeling that I'm going for. Now, the reason why I didn't choose this font in the first place was because it just felt very minimal and very clean, which to me isn't like a Mexican authentic style. And I feel like the grunge effect just had a power over me and represented it better. But in hindsight, I don't think it did. I think this is gonna work really nicely. Well, hopefully it will anyway. We will see throughout this video. Okay, that actually has added in a lot of personality. And the second change that I wanna make is adding triangles to the side of the first and last letter. Firstly, to kind of add balance and consistency, and then secondly, because nachos are triangle shaped, and I feel like that is a good reminder, so why the hell not? In hindsight, I am glad I had that little tantrum because this logo type was so much stronger than my original. Next, I wanted to see how it would work with the colors from the mood board, so I played around with the tones before deciding on this color palette, which is inspired by Mexican food and the common ingredients used. Nailing the color palette for this brand was crucial, as they'll have a lot of printed materials like menus, leaflets, etc. And something a lot of designers fail to consider when working with print is the color accuracy of their monitor. It may look good on screen, but how will that transfer over onto print? Having a monitor with high color accuracy is super important, and this monitor I have right in front of me has that, because it was specifically designed for creatives. Now the logo type and color palette were done, I moved on to creating the illustrations. So this business has a really interesting and wholesome backstory that inspired my creative direction for the design of these. So let's revisit Past Me to hear about the story and how I implemented this. Okay, so story time. So Cheeto was actually started by 5 Mexican brothers when they moved to the UK and found themselves missing the food of their culture. Now, because of this, they then decided to open up a restaurant to fill that void and give them a chance to share their love for authentic Mexican food with others. I feel like this line of the mouth is not sitting right, so I'm going to delete that and we will just re-add this on here. That kind of works, and now I can just add some lines over this. So what I'm aiming to do with these illustrations is to include all 5 of the brothers within this brand to keep the business's origin story alive. So I'm just using my pencil tool to draw this nose onto the skull. I say nose, but it is like the hole where the nose would be. And you're probably thinking right now, why am I drawing skulls for a Mexican restaurant brand? Well, they're actually really popular within the Mexican culture because people saw skulls as a really important symbol of life. They think by only accepting death and celebrating those who have passed, can we become closer to living to the fullest. So for these eyes, I think I'm just drawing like X's to represent like death and kind of masking tape, which works really nicely. Onto the last section, which I actually want to add like a sombrero or like a hat onto this Mexican style skull, just to add in a little bit of personality. So I am just using the go-to pencil tool. Now the reason why I'm using the pencil tool to draw these illustrations is because it allows me to just freehand exactly how I want it. It doesn't need to be perfect, whereas the pen tool is very rigid and I feel like it is very limiting. So that's why I use the pencil tool quite a lot throughout my videos, because it just allows me to draw exactly how I want to, kind of like how you would with like a pen or pencil on a piece of paper. So now I've done one, I am gonna go ahead and do the other 4 and then I will check back in with you. Okay, what do you think? So on each illustration, I've added subtle differences to show the different personalities of each brother. Once I'd created these illustrations, I put them next to the logo type to see if they worked. I remember getting a feeling of inconsistency and I couldn't quite work out why. So I did something that every designer struggles to do, and that was stop. I noticed I was so close to the work I just spent hours doing, so wasn't thinking objectively. I decided to leave it for the day and come back with a fresh mindset the following day. And just like magic, it worked. I identified what was wrong and came to the conclusion that the solution was triangles. These were added to the side of the skull's face and it worked. The next couple of stages consisted of creating mock-ups, putting together the brand presentation, and then getting it signed off by the client. A quick tip when putting your designs into mock-ups, sometimes the colors can look a little off because the template has some effects on them. I actually like to tweak my colors just to ensure they are as vibrant and accurate to the brand as possible. For this, I've been using the color wheel that is part of this monitor, and I've actually found it really useful when fine-tuning and making small changes to the color tones. After that was done, it was time to move on to my favorite part of this project, designing the menu for the restaurant. So the client sent over the copy they wanted on the menu, and then I got to work in the hopes of transforming this very boring Word document into a design that grabbed customers' attention. After spending a few days designing and going back and forth with the client, here's what we decided on. A double-sided flat A4 menu with 5 big sections of text. Now this is a strategic decision suggested by me to use the number 5 throughout their brand. We used a Urbano font for all of the headings, but sized down for the subheadings. Now this is the same font used for the logo type. We then used the font Arial for the body copy as it complemented Urbano well. Each section has its own dedicated color, which helps visually split up these sections and allows the viewer to easily distinguish between the mains from the starters. Boxes were also added to simplify this even more. Then images of food were added to get the customer's mouth watering, and then we made use of the triangles in the branding to underline the headings. Flicks were taken from the letters of the logo type and added onto the boxes to kind of look like speech bubbles to represent meaningful conversations had over good food. Then I added some doodles and arrows to give it an informal and homemade feel. And then lastly, we added the mandatory stuff like dietary requirements. Now I wonder what it would look like printed. How cool was that? Now there is nothing better than seeing your designs in real life. So throughout this video, you've probably noticed my new setup. Whilst it isn't finished yet, a new addition is this monitor, the Color Pro VP2776 from the sponsor of the video, ViewSonic. It's ideal because it's Apple compatible, meaning I just need one USB-C cable for power and screen, making my desk look super clean. If you want to check out this monitor, click the first link in my description. So you've just seen me design a brand for a restaurant, but have you seen the video where I create a brownie brand for a real client? If not, you need to watch this video right here. I'll see you over there.